My name is Dustin Mills, and today we'll be covering ISO SAE 21434 Clause 6. This introductory lesson is designed to give those charged with implementing ISO 21434 a general understanding of the clause requirements. My goal is not to make you experts on every detail of ISO 21434, but rather to help you make sense of the standard and to help you think through your current tools and processes. This will help you both expedite gap analysis and gap remediation activities. For those who are interested in more of a deep dive, we do have our deep dive section located in our Vehicle Security Engineering Cloud. Clause 6 of ISO 21434 is titled Project Dependent Cybersecurity Management and deals with, you guessed it, planning and managing the cybersecurity activities throughout the project. The 34 provisions listed in the Requirements and Recommendations section are divided into 9 sections: cybersecurity responsibilities, cybersecurity planning, tailoring, reuse, component out of context, off-the-shelf components, the cybersecurity case, cybersecurity assessment, and release for post-development. The objective of Clause 6 is to plan, coordinate, and audit all cybersecurity activities at the project level. Main activities are cybersecurity planning, including the allocation of duties, the planning of cybersecurity activities, and addressing reusing components, designing components out of context, and using off-the-shelf components.
Don't forget updates.
This will lead to the tailoring of cybersecurity activities. Also included in this section is the arguments for cybersecurity, or the cybersecurity case, proving the cybersecurity of the product, the cybersecurity assessment, and release for production. There are 34 total provisions which make up 4 work products. One work product, the cybersecurity plan, has 22 provisions, more than twice that of any other work product. While the number of provisions don't relate to the amount of work required, you will likely spend more time and energy into ensuring this work product and the associated processes include all the requirements. Let's talk about some of the challenges. Like any planning, this clause requires the coordination of many processes and teams to avoid delay and rework. You must coordinate with the safety team here. I'm going to give a shout out to Dr. Ahmad Nasser's book, The Automotive Cybersecurity Engineering Handbook. He puts a lot of work into outlining areas of cooperation between safety and security throughout the product development lifecycle. So check Chapter 6 in particular for details. For organizations with a low functional safety maturity, this will feel like extra work. However, security and safety should strengthen each other, so these maturity levels will increase if ISO 21434 is planned and implemented with that in mind. The shift left can prolong those early phases, at least at the beginning. Cybersecurity plan is a living document. It will change and be updated as activities are completed. If using suppliers, then your cybersecurity case becomes a collection of cybersecurity cases, including those for you and your suppliers. So you'll want to make sure that this work product is accounted for in your cybersecurity interface agreement with them, and you may consider requiring your templates to suppliers to make the cybersecurity assessment easier. Cybersecurity assessments should be an ongoing process. If everything throughout the project is done perfectly, then doing the assessment at the end will still cause a delay. The most likely scenario, however, is that you'll need rework throughout the project's implementation, and doing an ongoing assessment will help with these efforts. Finally, the assessment itself needs to be an independent audit. Assessing your own cybersecurity activities is a conflict of interest, and you won't likely discover any gaps. If you've been involved in functional safety, then you'll likely already feel very familiar with the requirements and terms discussed so far. In fact, each of the 4 work products required for Clause 6 is also required per ISO 26262. If your overall project plan includes the safety plan, then you'll likely include the cybersecurity plan as well. If, however, your overall project plan links to a separate safety plan, then you'll likely do the same for your cybersecurity plan. You'll also want to leverage commonalities like reuse, out of context, and off-the-shelf component lists. There's a strong argument for a common dependability case, which would include both security and safety. But if that isn't feasible, at least use a similar format for both the safety case and the cybersecurity case. If you are doing assessment activities in an ongoing process, like you should, then carefully align safety and security assessments along the way to minimize rework. Finally, for the post-development report, model the format and utilize similar sign-off steps so the people doing sign-off don't have to learn new document structures and processes. Before looking at the work products and requirements, let's discuss implementation. This will entirely depend on the structure of your organization, but teams and departments often responsible are going to include the project management team, the product cybersecurity team, and then assessment or compliance, audit, QA, third-party providers, and other checks and balances teams within your organization. The cybersecurity plan will include a number of development phases: the initiation and acquisition phase, concept phase, including the TARA, product development, cybersecurity validation, release, and post-development requirements. Per the ISO 21434 standard, the only required ones, however, are the ones in bold: the concept phase and TARA, product development, and cybersecurity validation. I would like to add a consideration to operations and updating activity. I don't see this mentioned a lot with regard to the cybersecurity plan, but it's worth mentioning as there are 22 different requirements for the cybersecurity plan alone. We will not go through each of these in this overview, but I've highlighted a few worth mentioning. If there are distributed cybersecurity activities, you will need to define a cybersecurity plan for both you, the customer, and your supplier. We'll talk about this more in Clause 7 activities with the Cybersecurity Interface Agreement, but you should know what that is referring to in the cybersecurity. Cybersecurity activities may be tailored, and the rationale would be put into the plan. Tailoring would be the customizing of activities for specific use cases, such as excluding certain cybersecurity requirements that are not applicable. A reuse analysis must be performed on items or components that will be reused, that is, items that were previously developed for another project. Requirement 6-16 and 6-17 talk about the reuse analysis requirements for items and components. This is covered in the standard itself, and we'll go into this in the deep dive section along with all the other provisions. Requirement 6-22 talks about using off-the-shelf components. If you're ordering non-customized components and integrating them, you'll need to look at the documentation for those components and decide which activities are needed to fill the gaps to make it ISO 21434 compliant. The requirements here are just a simple summary. Please pause the video to get a general idea of each, then read the standard or continue into the deep dive section in VSEC, which goes over the specific requirements and wording for each. And that is it for this overview video. If you are not yet on VSEC, please go to vsec.blockharbor.io. Not only will you find more automotive cybersecurity training content, but there's also real vehicle test benches you can access remotely, automotive cybersecurity capture the flag challenges, automated testing tools, and more. Thank you for your time.